This is a short scene of the owner of the Citizen Chain cyclery arriving for work. And in this case, we've got the Citizen Chain logo composited over the opening shot. What we want to be able to do here is to actually composite the Citizen Chain logo into the window of the shop using the new transform effect. Simply select the Citizen Chain logo graphic on the timeline, and then from your effects library, scroll down until you find the Resolve Effects transform category. Double-click the transform effect, and then access the Effects tab in the inspector. At first glance, it might appear that this effect has simply replicated some of the controls you may be familiar with in the video inspector. However, there are a number of different modes in which you can actually use this effect. Re-enable your Effect Overlays on-screen controls and change the control mode for the transform effect from sliders to interactive canvas. You're now presented with a grid which you can actually use in order to be able to twist and distort this graphic. Using the corner quadrants of the grid, simply click and drag the on-screen controls in order to be able to position the corners of the graphic into the corners of the window. Try and get it as close as possible, but don't worry too much if you can't. Don't forget though, you can always zoom in using the scroll wheel on your mouse, and holding down the middle mouse button, you can always change the pan of the image within the viewer. When you've finished, simply press Z in order to be able to fit the image back into the viewer. Turn off your on-screen controls in order to be able to see the composited image. We can actually use composite modes in order to help this image blend a little bit more naturally into the background. In the inspector, go to the Video tab, and from the Composite section, change the composite mode You could also play with the opacity as well to make it a little less obvious that that graphic is there. This is all very well. We're helping to sell that image, but this is always on the first frame of the shot. If I actually play this timeline now, you can see that the camera movement actually shows up the fact that this image isn't actually part of that window. Now, the edit page doesn't actually have the advanced tracking functions that you would find in the Fusion page, but many editors are often happier about putting in some keyframes in order to be able to manually follow the movement of the camera, particularly if that camera movement is smooth enough. If I return the playhead back to the beginning of this clip in the timeline and return to the Effects tab of the inspector, under the Control options, I've got the Control Canvas keyframe. And I'm just going to simply add a keyframe at the first frame of this clip. I'm going to use the down arrow key to jump to the next edit point, but I actually need to see the last frame of this graphic, so I'm going to come one frame back. And now, if I re-enable my on-screen controls, I can now change the position of each of those corner points. And what this will do is it will actually record the changes in a new keyframe automatically. Disable your on-screen effects, return the playhead to the beginning of the timeline, and play back. It's simple compositing tasks like this that as editors we often need to accomplish on a day-to-day basis. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that this will be the finished effect. Sometimes all we need to do is put together a rough approximation of the effect, just so that the director understands how the shot will work when you hand it off to a visual effects artist. The next example we're going to look at is the new